Hey, what's up? It's Lewis from Cool and Unusual Games. It looks like it's been about a month since I've done a show. I actually took something of a break to do some more music and things like that. And now I am back, so I'll be doing more reviews. And I don't think the format's going to change a whole lot. People seem pretty happy with how it's going, so gonna continue with that. Done a bit of Twitch streaming. Um, and I don't know if anyone wants to tune into that or not. I might have to find time to make it a more regular hour, because I think that's kind of essential if I'm going to really do that. Uh, but anyway, I thought I'd just get right into the Q&A and answer some questions. And then afterwards, I'll talk about what's kind of coming up next review-wise. So Steve Aside says, as a lover of music and games myself, I noticed you mentioned you make chiptune. Are you into other genres of electronic music as well? I'm a dubstep, UK style, and jungle slash drum and bass DJ. UK style dubstep, that's like if you take original dub from the 70s and you just do it with electronic instruments, right? That's like the more traditional dubstep. I always wondered how how Skrillex ended up being called dubstep. It doesn't really sound like dub. Anyway, he says he's finally gotten into production recently too. The drums on your intro do seem a bit jungle D&B influenced. Um, yeah, I was into a lot of electronic music back in the 90s, and I guess I lost interest to some degree. But I was influenced a lot by electronic music out of the mainstream that was kind of in the demo scene, and it kind of reached me that way. It's funny, I have just happen to have next to me the Wipeout XL soundtrack that I bought when I was 17 or so. But no, I do like electronic music. I just don't get exposed to it enough. But yeah, back in the 90s, I was really into Future Sound of London and Fluke and stuff like that. I never really dug that deep. I probably should have. In the late 90s, early 00s, I got more into jazz and hip hop and stuff like that. So that's kind of where my tastes went. But yeah, if I remember right, the R-Type Delta music was a big influence on that song. I don't know any specific D&B that influenced it, even though yeah, it's clearly a D&B kind of chopped up, sped up drum beat. It's almost Amen break style. I know the bridge from Streets of Rage 2, the bridge music, was an influence on that as well. So that's kind of where I'm at musically, and yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Hellfire64 says, is there a system out there which you feel is overrated by the gaming community, and conversely, any that you think are severely underrated? Let's start with that first question. I'll go to the second one after I answer this. The Dreamcast and Neo Geo Pocket, I think, used to be kind of underrated, but I've noticed now that they've been pretty well recognized by the retro gaming community. They kind of got a lot of hype kind of post-mortem, which I was surprised by. They're both there are two machines that were very out of step with what was really popular then. At the time, arcade stuff wasn't really that big. It was kind of making it something of a comeback, a little bit of a resurgence, but it's kind of the last gasp before they died. And the Dreamcast and Neo Geo Pocket were both very arcade centric, and I think people wanted to play stuff like Armored Core and SquareSoft games and stuff. They weren't as into like shooters and stuff like that. I think now that people have been getting more into like quick play games, and games that are just like purely skill based. I think largely in part to the kind of the indie games push. They're more open to games that are less cinematic, more instant gratification, but then with a lot of depth beneath the surface. Let's see. I think these days what's underrated. So the Dreamcast and Neo Geo Pocket, they've kind of been discovered in hindsight, I think, by people. These days, I kind of think the GameCube is underrated. It's got a lot of really cool exclusive stuff. It's got the best port of Super Monkey Ball, the arcade one, which I think is still the best Monkey Ball game. I haven't played them all, but I played some of the later ones, and I thought they were kind of not awesome. Let's see. They had Ikaruga is a great port. I know now it's on Xbox Live, but back then, it was either on Dreamcast or GameCube. And I think there's some issues with the Xbox Live one that the GameCube one doesn't have. And I don't know if the Xbox Live one comes with all the replays that the GameCube one does. It comes with replays of different play styles, which is great. It has a practice mode that's slow motion. Really cool stuff. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And the Xbox One has the extra modes. I'm not sure. And of course, if you only have an HD TV, the Xbox One is probably your best bet. But yeah, at the time, it was the only way to play Ikaruga, which is a fantastic game. It's got, I think, one of the best Mario Karts. I think it's a lot better than the Wii Mario Kart. Probably not as good as Mario Kart 8 or 7, but it's up there, I think. The Wave Race game is quite good. So yeah, oh, and it's got my favorite F-Zero of all the F-Zero. The game's great. Yeah, so it's a really neat system. It packed a lot of performance for the price. It was small and sturdy, good stuff. And panned, not panned, but treated pretty harshly by gamers at the time, thinking, "Oh, it's too kiddie," and which mystified me. But Nintendo always got that reputation, and they always had trouble shaking it. And I think for a handheld, what's underrated is the Atari Lynx. A lot of people really don't like the system, and I can kind of understand why. It doesn't have any great RPGs. It doesn't have any great platformers. But what it doesn't have there, it makes up for with really good arcade ports. And, if you were like me and you hit the arcades a lot when that came out, I was stoked to be able to play stuff like Road Blasters and Stun Runner kind of on the go with all like the real-time scaling that even home consoles couldn't do that. And suddenly you had a handheld that can do all that. Stuff like Warbirds is just fantastic. And later in the life, it got stuff like a Battle Wheels, which is a just amazing vehicular combat game. Just great stuff, especially if you like Car Wars and things like that. And multiplayer, you can link them up and kind of take on a whole new dimension. I sold my Lynx back in the day, and I sold it for a Game Gear because the Game Gear was more popular, it survived longer, and almost instantly I started missing games like Xenophobe, which is just another fantastic Lynx game. And there's no real equivalent on the Game Gear. I mean, I did love stuff like Sonic 1, and, I think I bought mine partially for Halo Wars, which is a great shooter. That's better than any shooter on the Lynx, but the Lynx had some stuff that other systems just didn't do. And let's see, I think eventually, I think in the coming years, the Wii is going to be regarded more highly than it is now by kind of what I could want to call core gamers. It gets slammed a lot for shovelware and overuse of waggle and being too gimmicky, but there's some really solid stuff on it that I think gets kind of lumped in with the rest. And I think as time goes on, people will kind of discover these, and people's, I think, opinion is going to change a little bit about the Wii. Let's see. As far as overrated, I think I gotta go for the N64. I'm gonna get such hate for this. For both of these picks, actually, I'm gonna get a lot of hate. It's such a favorite, but it just, man, it's just so blurry and slow. And there's some stuff I really like for it. I think it's got the best 3D Zelda still. I actually love the Midway games for it, and it's cartridge based, so there's no load times. But overall, I don't know, it just doesn't click with me the way it clicks with other people. And I can't help but think that a lot of people's memories of it really center around their get-togethers with friends, because it was such a good multiplayer console. It was the only thing with 4 controller ports built in at the time. So, people get together for GoldenEye. My college years, it was Mario Kart 64. But when I go back to Mario Kart 64 now, I feel like there's other Mario Karts that are better these days. Even though that was a groundbreaker. And the other one I gotta pick, oh man, people are gonna hate me for this. The PS2. It kind of has an eye-searing interlace that's just really harsh. It cost a lot when it came out. It broke a lot. Those drives do not hold up. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's actually that much more powerful than a Dreamcast, which for the cost I would expect way more, especially considering like the Xbox and the GameCube kind of came out the following year, and they were very powerful consoles. So I'm sure we'll get lots of comments about that. It does have a great game library. Very varied. It's probably one of the bigger game libraries of any console. But yeah, I'm just not playing mine a whole lot. I think because of the other issues. I mean, mine doesn't read CDs anymore. It'll read DVDs. I don't know. Uh, the next question from Hellfire was, what would be the one thing you'd recommend for someone who wants to mess around with chiptunes? The one thing, man, recommending one thing. I'm going to recommend a tracker, because a lot of people start with this. If you have a piano background, you might be better off with a sequencer, but if not, a tracker is really good for getting really high detail into your compositions, which is kind of what you need if you're running on a real chip to get all those channels syncopated and, doing all the echoes and squeezing stuff in with these little gaps and all that. You need a tracker. And one that's kind of neat, two that are kind of neat, they're related, they're almost the same thing. Oh, almost the same thing. That's an oversimplification, but LSDJ and Little Piggy Tracker. And the reason I'm recommending these is because you can load them onto a flash cart. They let you enter notes with the D-pad, so you're writing music on the real hardware using your controller. And so they have a charm to them because of that. And there's not really much else that works like that. And since they're for portable systems like the Game Boy or PSP, you can kind of take them on the go, which is great. You sit in the park and chiptune. I know people who swear by the software. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but if I had to recommend one thing to a beginner, and they're not easy. They're intimidating just like every other tracker, but for the other reasons I mentioned, they're not bad to start out with. You just need to have some patience and yeah. J Minor, I don't think this is the real J Minor. The J Minor who he's a chip designer who developed processors for the Atari 800 and the Commodore Amiga. But the user named J Minor says, "Which is your favorite system of all time, and which is your favorite game of all time?" Oh man, well, I'm gonna reveal my Sega fanboy roots here, and I think I gotta say for consoles, and probably overall too, the Genesis, because it has such a wide selection of shmups and action games, and the hardware is really good at keeping up with all that. I like my SNES a lot, but I like it more for slower games or racing games. Slower games like Super Metroid, something that's more exploration based, or Legend of Zelda. I like my Genesis when I want just lots of stuff flying around the screen and lots of action. Or the PC Engine, but I think the Genesis tends to overshadow the PC Engine just because it's a little bit of a bump in hardware most of the time, and it's not just fast with shmups, it's fast with a lot of other genres, where the PC Engine is great for shmups and then starts kind of having issues with like platformers and stuff like that, even though there are some great ones like Sansan 2. Anyway, the favorite game. Okay, so favorite game is going to be Doom. And that was for me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that was I fell in love with this game when it came out, and I've been playing it since, and I'm still not sick of it. Like, I feel like I can play through the whole game every year and just not get tired of it. And I think what's so great about it is that, as a single-player FPS game, it's got this great balance of exploration and action where you're kind of nudged towards the locations. It's got a good auto map. It's got lots of secrets. And there's a lot of great design decisions that keep it really fair. Where a lot of FPS games, they rely so heavily on save states, like quick saves, where you'll be like, you'll have 80% health, you turn a corner, someone snipes you, and gotta reload my save. which I don't think is good design. And Doom got more like that as the series went. Actually, it got more towards kind of insta kill, the machine gun guys who can just like, from far away rob you of tons of health and stuff like that. The first three episodes, I think, are kind of this pinnacle where they did such smart stuff where you can pretty much get a shotgun, which is kind of your bread and butter weapon in that game, right off the bat on any level. And they make it so that the stuff that can really hurt you is either melee or projectiles that you can dodge and see coming. So the guys with the pistols and shotguns, those are the only two things that are like long range instant attacks. There's a lot that they do that keep it just playing really well, really fluidly. I can just sit down there and play and not worry about saving and reloading games and stuff like that. Where there's so many games where you're just kind of like, oh, I got past that battle, save. And Doom does not do that, which is why it's great. And I hope Doom 4 keeps up that kind of pace. And I guess we'll see. So many newer FPS games are basically like that, but with checkpoints that are automatic. I don't find it to be that different. I wish they'd adhere more to a Doom formula where you have this whole level you can run around. So it's like this whole huge chunk of a map at a time, instead of kind of leading you down these corridors. Sometimes on the later FPS games that are more cinematic, I feel like I'm kind of, I don't know, part of like a Universal Studios, like a theme park ride or something. It doesn't feel right to me. Doom, awesome stuff. So Aaron White writes, when did you first get into chiptunes and on what system? Oh man, I remember the moment almost. So I'm going to play a clip of Robot Rascals, which I love this song. I think it's Dave Warhol. But it's a great example of what people weren't doing with Commodore hardware, with chiptunes, or video game soundtracks in general, back before people like Rob Hubbard or Jeroen Tel. So, the composition is really good, right? But it's I hate people say, oh, it's bloops and bleeps, but it's bloops and bleeps. It's it's the same thing with a lot of early Nintendo stuff, where they're well composed and everything like that, but it's literally note on, beep, note off. There's not a lot of finesse. There's not a lot of expression. But when people like Rob Hubbard hit the scene, they really changed how game music was written. First they weren't just composers, they were also programmers, and they made their own sound engines, which I think was a really important part of that. So they weren't just getting more, varied voices. They're cramming more sounds into the composition. They were just pushing this stuff way beyond what anyone thought you could push it, And so, listen to this Commando music I'm going to play right now. Okay, so one thing you might notice is just how dense that is and how funky and just you know, it just hits. And it's something that previous compositions didn't really do. I remember when I was 7 years old, I had a copy of that game, and I put it in, and that music played, and I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. And I remember waiting until the credits rolled around. And I was like, oh, Rob Hubbard, I gotta remember that name. Gotta remember that name. And I didn't think for years after that anyone else cared about this guy or knew who he was or anything. And it wasn't until I found the internet at about 96. You know, I was in a small town. We didn't get the internet until then. And I went online and I found that a lot of people were fans of this guy, that I wasn't the only one. It was kind of a great moment. But yeah, that was the moment I got into chiptunes. And I heard that and I thought, man, this is what I want to do. Because I tooled around on the piano a lot. You know, I didn't really take lessons. I just kind of banged on it, made my own music, made my own tunes. It wasn't good, but it wasn't until I heard the Commando theme that I knew I wanted to go more for electronic music. So that was like a pivotal moment. And I didn't write chiptunes really until I don't know. I mean, what do we consider a chiptune? Like, if you're considering Mod Files chiptunes, or Amiga Music chiptunes. I was on the Amiga with a program called Instant Music. That's not really a demo scene kind of program. It was sold by EA. Very good for beginners, though. I learned a lot of music theory from it. And then on the PC, we had a modem, so I got a tracker. And that was the first tracker I had. And then it wasn't until, like, probably 96 or 97 that I started writing quote-unquote chiptunes, you know, like really beepy songs on the with a tracker. You know, what people in the demo scene would call a chiptune back then, as opposed to stuff that's kind of trying to be full quality, and if that makes sense. So yeah, that's about when that happened. Grinding Ghoul says, oh, also I gotta mention, Aaron White writes chiptunes. So I'll throw up a link in the description, and you should check out his stuff too. Grinding Ghoul says, what draws you to all these unusual games, and which would be your favorite and more unusual, or most unusual? Oh man, that's a hard choice. I think I always played unusual games. I think for a few reasons. I think one is you know, I spoke earlier about liking consoles that were kind of out of step with everything else. I'm kind of out of step with everything else too. So you know, I'm kind of NES generation. All my friends had NESs. My brother's about 5 years older, and he was kind of part of the Atari generation. So he's more about, you know, if it wasn't arcades, it was computer games. You know, we didn't really have a NES. I didn't have a console until the Genesis. Probably one of the reasons it's my favorite. Actually, it's probably a bit of nostalgia in there for sure. But yeah, so you know, I wasn't into stuff like Castlevania or Mega Man. I don't know. I was more into shooters and arcade games. I remember a friend of mine had a NES, and he also had an Atari 2600. I wanted to play the Atari. Though Rad Racer did catch my attention. I did like that because I was a fan of Outrun at the time. Let's see. Yeah, so I was playing different games kind of throughout my kind of developmental years there. And later on, it wasn't just that. Later on, I got kind of fed up with, you know, a lot of polygonal gaming in the kind of the mid '90s. I wasn't that satisfied with later FPS games, as you might have noticed when I was talking about Doom versus later games. And I don't know, the consoles just didn't catch my attention because I think I didn't know about stuff like the Saturn. I didn't know about all the arcade ports. I didn't even know people were still making shoot 'em ups. So I got really into like emulators on the PC. I got my SNES back out of the closet, got my Game Gear back out, and you know, I pretty soon exhausted kind of all the popular games. I was kind of started looking around for, well, what else could I play on this? And so I kind of started digging deeper and deeper. And because emulation was a thing at the time, it was kind of new, but I was able to kind of raid these sites and find weird games, and wow, I can't believe people aren't talking about this game. I can't believe people are talking about this other game, or and that was I don't know. I think I got kind of hooked on that. So I think these things kind of contributed to this channel. Okay, so Platomatic I, I'm hoping I'm reading people's names right. Platomatic says, as for questions, what platforms, programs, chips appeal most to you when you make chip tunes? And here's another question, but I'll answer this first. So I'm way into FM. And I've been kind of branching out because I did it for a long time. I started doing FM stuff about 2000, and I got really good at it. And I'm kind of looking for new challenges, I think. But for FM, I really like the AdLib. I love that chip. And I think what I like about it is that... so I dismissed this chip. I hated the way a lot of DOS games sounded. I thought that it was tinny. I thought it was kind of thin and weak. And then someone gave me a tracker, a rad tracker, for that chip. And I realized that if you just spend a little bit of time making sounds, they'll immediately sound so much better than so many commercial games. And it kind of made me sad and a little bit angry. Because it doesn't really take that much of experimentation. You just need a little bit of synthesizer knowledge. So if you've already were into synthesizers, and someone handed you an FM chip, a two operator FM chip, a simple one like this, you can apply a lot of the same techniques, whether it's voice layering or detuning, and pitch slides to kind of make fat bass drums and stuff like that. But people didn't. I don't know why. It's a mystery. I think maybe they're so overwhelmed supporting so many different sound cards that they're just like, you know what, we'll just write everything in general MIDI, screw it, we'll just use the default sounds, we don't have time. And that's, I don't blame them. Some of these games, they support like 20 sound chips. I mean, at the very least, a lot of them support, the AdLib, and they'll support the MT32, and they'll, like random general MIDI modules, and then... on top of it, maybe the PC speaker. It's just this like long list of stuff they have to support. So if they had to take shortcuts, that's pretty understandable. But finding out that there's so much more you can do with that chip really kind of lit a fire under me. And programming for years got better and better. And I think I'm just time for something new. But so I've been playing with general MIDI myself. I got kind of obsessed with making stuff for old sound modules. I have a sound canvas that I ordered, and I can't wait. I'm really giddy with excitement for that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I also like the Sega Master System because it's all square wave pretty much, and I find that very charming. And it's really a challenge to make something sound good with 3 square wave channels and a noise channel. Anyway, so Platomatic also asks, another question was, have you done any game developing yourself? Yes. I kind of. I kind of want to start a new project soon. I don't know if I'll have time, but I want to start a new shmup project. Yeah, back when I was in college, I would actually have breaks, and it would be spring break, and I'd spend a week making a game. So I made like a Monaco GP clone, like this 1979 Monaco GP called Ventura Heat. I made a 2-player tank game called Mega Tank. No relation to anything called Mega Tank that you've heard of. It's a pretty generic name. Where it's kind of, like combat crossed with Vindicators, crossed with Grobda. And I released a unreleased shooter that I spent forever trying to get really clever making an engine, spending way too much time on it. When I started to make the levels and do the art, I just burned out. I did pixel art for that game. You spent so much time with it. Did level and a half, and I was done. So it's kind of important. I'd say that if you're a programmer and you want to do a game, do the engine yourself if you must. And if you're doing that, have someone else do the game design, and then have someone else do the art. Get a team together. Don't stress yourself out. And I've done a lot of 1-hour game jams, and those are really fun, where you have an hour to make a game, and what you do is you just leave bugs in, you just do everything half-assed, as easy as possible, bad coding habits, whatever, everything goes. It doesn't matter. Just get done in an hour. Made like some simple Asteroids clones, made like a game where people are jumping up a burning building and you have to catch them in like on a paddle, and a few things like that. None of them are very complicated. Obviously, it's a 1-hour project. And I've done some lengthier game jams, but only as a musician. And those were really fun. I did like a Molly Jam once. That was all weekend, and I just did music for a bunch of people's games, and I was just there with my MIDI keyboard, just having a good time and tossing out tracks, and you know, writing all kinds of styles. And those are, if you're interested at all in writing games, and if there's a game jam scene near you, like an indie game scene, check out game jams. They're lots of fun. You get together with a bunch of people and just be creative. And what's good about them is that there's no pressure. You can just be silly, and games are primarily about fun, and game jams are just another way of enjoying games. So yeah, I got some reviews in the pipeline. I got some pickups. I never do pickup videos, and I might as well. Some stuff that I might review, and man, if there's anything you see here that you're like, oh my god, I really want to see that reviewed, let me know. I'm gonna try to get to a lot of them, but I'm kind of short on time these days, so I'll get to as many as possible. Yeah, I was doing the show bi-weekly for some time, but I think I'm gonna have to cut down on that a little bit, maybe weekly. Anyway, let's get started here. So I picked up and played this quite a bit. Wave Race Blue Storm. I'm almost convinced now, it's really good. I'm almost convinced now that reviewers didn't like it because it's super hard. I've got SNES games falling off the counter. Okay, I've got Bulk Slash, which is this awesome mech game that I want to review. I've got Four Wheel Thunder, which has a cool story behind it. It's a midway racing game in the same series as Hydro Thunder, but it actually wasn't originally going to be a Thunder game, and it's pretty cool. I got Cosmic Smash, which is from the same time period as Rez. It's got a cool case. And it's like Breakout or Arkanoid crossed with Squash or Racquetball or something. Very cool, very techno, very Tron. I really dig it. I want to review Heretic because I said I love Doom, and this is basically more Doom in a fantasy setting. It's good. It's related to Hexen, but I think Heretic's actually better. I've got Whiplash. It's a racing game for I think DOS PCs. It could be Windows. I could be wrong. I think it's DOS PCs. And I need to boot this up. I haven't actually got this working. My Pentium 200 is being a pain. But I do want to review that one because I love racing games. I got the Bitmap Brothers' last game, Z. It's an RTS game. I never play RTS games. I don't know if I should review this because I have no grounding when it comes to RTSs. I'm not a big fan. I like turn-based strategy sometimes, but RTS never clicked with me. But it is Bitmap Brothers, and I'm a sucker for that stuff. I love the art style. Check this out. All right. This game is probably going to be my next review. Astro Go-Go. It's like super wacky F-Zero kind of game. I mean, it looks like F-Zero, but if you think it's an F-Zero clone, then it's going to blow your mind. I still haven't found time to review this. Oh, I got actually 2 copies of this. But Zeliard is a game by Game Arts, who did Thexter and Alacia Dragoon and Sylphid. And it's like a Zelda 2 kind of game. It's really cool. Or like Wonder Boy or whatever. I have 2 copies because I ordered one and it turned out to be a really crappy budget edition. And I thought it was a bootleg at first. And the seller gave me some money back for it. I said, fine. I was at a swap meet or flea market or whatever a few weeks ago. And this guy had all these big box games for sale. And I thought, oh, it'd be funny if he had Zeliard, and he did. It was the original Sierra one with a nice glossy manual and a map and all this stuff, complete. I got this a while ago, and I haven't reviewed it yet. Walker for the Commodore Amiga. This is actually the NTSC version, and they they spared no expense on the NTSC version. Wow, it's basically a PAL as far as I can tell. I still have not found time to play this enough. Hired Guns, I like it a lot. I want to give this a really in-depth review when I review it. And it's a deep game, and I just have not had the kind of those big chunks of free time to really get into it. I think Mr. Do is in the review pipeline. I love this game. Super Drift Out, which I beat a while ago, and I've been meaning forever to do a review of this, and just haven't. I don't know. I should do it. I also couldn't find the cartridge, but oh god, I can't remember the name. It's a title game where you're a dragon. Damn it! It's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't find the cartridge either. It's somewhere around here. And I'm borrowing some Jag stuff from a friend, and if I don't have to give it back to him, I think these two are going to get reviewed. It's Wolfenstein 3D, which is very different from the PC Wolfenstein, by the way. Different levels, different vibe. It's more of a run and gun, redrawn graphics, redrawn guns, new guns like flamethrowers. I think it's the same as the Macintosh one, which is also a different game. Tempest 2000, which I'm borrowing, and I need to just review this because I can already just like one credit this thing like most of the way through the game. And I bought, speaking of my favorite FPS of all time, Doom. And this is a great version of Doom. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it was going to pull it off, but it did. Anyway, that's kind of what's planned, and I don't know if I'll get to all those games, but I'll at least get to many of them, and might have some other stuff getting in the way, other reviews getting in the way, rather, that are more appealing, maybe. So if there's anything you really want to see reviewed, give it a shout in the comments. And, yeah, I guess maybe in a week I'll have time to do another review, finally. Take care and keep on gaming. Oh, it's definitely getting reviewed. Yeah.